I am really excited about this topic tonight. We are talking about why communication skills may not fix your relationship problems and what to do about it. I'm wondering if you want to share your thoughts about this. You can put them in the comments below. Your off the cuff, why you think communication skills aren't enough. And I'm going to share why I think at this time. So first, I want to say communication skills are awesome. And obviously, I believe in them. I just taught a free 7-day training on effective communication skills, and they really can be powerful game changers in your relationships. So often we're just not taught how to communicate clearly or effectively, and we want to be heard and understood. And so the right communication skills can help you get there. Absolutely. But I also believe that for a lot of us, there's more to the issue than just how we're communicating or what we're actually saying. That's part of it, but often there's deeper underlying issues that are the source of your communication challenges. So that's what I want to speak to in this talk, is what could be the source of these other challenges that communication skills may not fix for you. So let's look at that. As you may know, I'm trained to work with developmental and complex trauma. So I'm wearing this lens tonight as I speak to you about this. When you've had difficult childhood experiences that caused you to not feel safe, to feel like you had to hide, you may have had to feel like you had to shut part of your authenticity down, you had to contract, or maybe you felt like you withdrew, then, or some of you fought and you got more, rebellious. Maybe you ran away. Maybe you turned to drugs or alcohol to kind of soothe yourself, to cope. Maybe, you turned to religion or whatever you did. Maybe your thing was really feeling like you had to be the best at everything and make the most money and have the nicest clothes and the best car and the best job and all the things. We find ways to survive our difficult childhood experiences, and there's lots of strategies for doing that. But when we've had difficult childhood experiences, that's usually the source of our current relationship challenges, especially if those childhood experiences happened inside of a relationship, and pretty much everything does. There could be a one-time event like a car accident or a fall or a surgery that had to happen, but still it affects how you relate to yourself and how you relate to others. So anytime something difficult happens for us, and especially when it's chronic, when it's happening over a longer period of time in our family of origin, especially when it's with those who are raising us, whether it's our parents or other caregivers, aunts and uncles, or other family members that are treating us poorly, it affects our sense of self, and it affects how we show up in relationship dynamics. So that's just a kind of overview, and then we can sort of pinpoint even more when it happens in our attachment relationships, specifically in the relationship to our caregivers and our earliest caregivers, the people who birthed us, who are taking care of us when we're infants and toddlers. Those relationships are really key for how we show up later in life. So you may have heard of attachment styles. We have secure and insecure attachment, and there's varieties of insecure attachment like anxious attachment and others. I'm not going to go into all the styles and talk about them specifically here tonight, but the gist is that if we don't have secure attachment, which is when we feel held and cared for and safe, if we have anything less than that in that early, like first part of life, first 6 months to a year, even 2 years, then that greatly affects how we see ourselves and how we show up with others who we're close to in intimacy. So if your parent or caregiver wasn't attentive to you, if they didn't know how to soothe you when you were crying. Sometimes they don't, right? Certain caregivers have their own childhood stuff that shows up when they're caring for you, or uh, like it's hard for it not to. But so they may have not known how to attend to your crying or your discomfort. They may have actually hit you or said bad things to your face. They may have not known how to give you eye contact. They may have been very impatient and yelled at you. So those are just a few examples of what may have happened that would cause you to feel insecure in your attachment, like to question your lovability and your value as a person. Because what a child does when they don't get their needs met and they're not attended to, they're not shown that they're loved and valued, is they blame themselves. A child doesn't know how to distinguish that a caregiver or an adult isn't doing a good job. They don't have that sense of separation and judgment. All they know is, children are very self-centered, and that's just, it's not a judgment, it's just how it is. They don't have the capacity to think about how others are feeling or what they're wanting in the same way. And so they turn it all on themselves, and they think, well, if I'm not getting cared for right now, if this person is yelling at me, or if this person's hurting me, or this person's ignoring me, then it must be me. There must be something wrong with me. So that's what a child does. And then it really affects, as you're an adult, your sense of self. You feel not good enough. You feel like you're a problem. You feel like nobody likes you, or you're not lovable. And then you have all these ways to compensate, some of which I mentioned earlier, which might be, excelling in school, or dropping out of school, or turning to drugs, or being an excellent in sports, or in music, or super smart, or super casual, or laid back, or not caring about anything. So there's lots of ways we can create to cope, but the point is that we're coping because there's painful feelings in there that you don't know how to feel. Because for children, when there's this type of pain, it's like an emotional pain, let alone if something physical happened to you, it's overwhelming. Children don't have the capacity to just like, oh, I'm angry, and feel their anger. They don't. It's way too much for their little systems. And so they learn to block it out, right? They learn to kind of override it, to suppress it. And so we may carry things like this forward in our adult relationships, where we've disowned certain emotions because they felt too painful or too threatening to have. Because if we have like anger when we're a kid, we know we could get beaten up by our caregivers, or shoved in a closet, or whatever it might have been. So, or disowned. So we may disown those parts of ourselves that didn't feel safe to express. So hopefully that's all making sense. So you can see there's a lot. Each of us are complex, right? We have so much that goes into how we show up now as adults, how we show up in our work life, in our parenting, in our intimate relationships, and in our relationships with ourselves. So there, you can see there's just so many levels here, and communication is only one level. And I think it's more on a surface level, because it's like, it's driven, how we communicate is driven by these other factors, by how we feel. If we don't feel worthy, it's going to affect how we communicate. We may have not speak loud enough. Like I always, when I was little, I hardly ever spoke up. People were always asking me, what did you say? You're mumbling. I was told so many times I was mumbling. So I had this fear of I didn't know how to change it at the time, but I was suppressing myself. I didn't feel like big enough or confident enough to put myself out there. Look at me now, like I've changed a few things, but that's just one example of how we may show up in our communication based on our early childhood stuff that happened. So I'd love to know if you have any questions. I'm going to come into the comments section. Deep fear, lack of trust. Thank you, Kathy. Good to see you. And let me know. Feel free to say hello and where you're from. If you're here watching live, or even if you're watching the replay, say hello. And I'm going to keep going. So So we may have, when there's a lot of fear in our environment growing up, or if we were simply like not attended to, if our parents were too busy for us, or we weren't breastfed, or they went on vacation, or they passed us on to other people, or we were, foster kids, then we didn't get enough quality attention and what we call attunement, which is a close attention to, like, how are you doing, and how can I help you, and oh, you're fussing, like what might it be, and that kind of attention, that loving attention. Then we are likely to have this view of ourselves that says, like, I'm not worthy and I'm not important, or my needs don't matter. And so when we have that, and we may try to overcome it by trying to take care of everybody else's needs. So put a I do that in the comment if that's you. If one of your ways of compensating was like to be the caregiver for everybody else and ignore your own needs, like trying to fix people and help people, even if they're not asking to be helped, to save, pets and, people on the street. And just, it's a beautiful quality to have a heart that big that wants to help everybody. But if you do that at the expense of your own health and well-being, that's when it becomes a problem. So that's, again, another example of then how we might come to the table in an intimate relationship, then not knowing what our own needs are, or suppressing our needs, or always being like, oh, it's about you and what do you want, and I don't really matter, and I'll just go with the flow, and don't worry about me, and let's see, what you get to pick, and those types of things. But if we do that, what really can happen is we end up feeling resentful. That's kind of a codependent pattern. So we end up feeling resentful eventually, because then people are drawn to us who want us to do everything for them. And then we're like, I'm always doing everything. And then this comes out in our communication, and in the people we choose, because they're choosing us, and we're like, okay, I'm going to take care of you because I like being that person. But that's an example of a way that a pattern that you've had for way too long kind of takes over in your closer relationships, and it's not working for you. And it may seem like it's about communication because, you don't know how to ask for what you want, or when you do, you say it kind of resentfully, and you're kind of blaming people because you're in that space of like, I always do everything. And then, or other people might always be asking you for things because that's what you train them to do, right? You train them to need you because you like being needed. So again, that's just another example of how we show up with our patterns, and then that's driving the relationship dynamics that don't feel very good, and it's communication is not going to fix it. So let me know if you have any questions about that or comments. I'm seeing Leela, hey there. Yes, and I see Kathy, I'm definitely a caregiver, but it's exhausting. Of course it is exhausting. Hey, Barbara, good to see you. Yeah, it is exhausting to run any pattern like that where you're not in harmony with your own needs and desires, or you're overgiving, or you're you're trying to be the boss and always have the answers and always tell people what to do and like do it right, and you're trying to be perfect. That's another pattern, that doesn't, it's unsustainable, right? Because you exhaust yourself trying to be someone you're not. So here's what I have to say about all that. Well, my talk tonight, right, is why communication skills aren't necessarily going to fix your relationship problems. So now that you have many examples of relationship problems that may be driving your unhealthy communication patterns, let's look at what you might need to do about it. And I have several ideas based on all the things I've learned over my career in coaching, but also my 20+ year relationship that's been really very healthy and balanced, in my opinion. So take a breath. So that's the first piece, actually, is a lot of times when we have early trauma or even a shock trauma later in life, a one-time event, it can really mess with our nervous system. It can affect our wiring in a way, or just kind of tweak our wiring, and then we feel off kilter, or we feel tense all the time, or we feel anxious and we're like running at 50 miles an hour all the time. We don't know how to slow down, and that's another coping strategy, is like, if I slow down, I'm going to feel too many feelings and then it will hurt, and I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to just keep going. So knowing how to work with your nervous system, how to regulate your own self, so to self-regulate, and how to co-regulate with others, is really essential for your health and well-being and for your relationships. If you are dysregulated, if you're always down or too high, you're not balanced, and it's pretty hard to relate to people from those imbalanced places. So this is just point number one, that you need tools, you need practices, you need support in self-regulation and co-regulation of your nervous system. So that's key, because, and you've heard me maybe teach about this in the past, it's really hard to communicate effectively when you're like, you're amped, you're on adrenaline, you're looking through the lens of fight flight, which is what adrenaline causes in you. Or fight flight causes adrenaline to come through your system. In either case, it's like overtakes your mind state. You're in survival mode. You're in like, I gotta win, or I gotta get out of here. Where's the door? And you can't think clearly, so you cannot communicate skillfully when you're under the influence of adrenaline and cortisol. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, like I spoke to, when you have this inner felt sense and this identity of, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, and I'm not lovable, and I'm not deserving of having what I want, or having a good relationship, or it's never going to work for me, but it works for others, that's going to get in the way of a healthy connection with somebody. So I know I had that, and it was running the show for me, and it was just dominating all my relationships, always looking for like how I could be liked and what I could do to make them like me and get approval, and or always thinking they're judging me and they're not liking me, and all that projection. So you need to work with your self-esteem and build that, build your confidence, build your self-worth, so that you choose people who value you because you value yourself. And so that you know how to stand up for yourself as well. So number three, just cruising at my notes here. So being connected to your true emotions is also really key. You heard me earlier say that so often we disconnect from our emotions because they're so painful to feel. And kids don't have the capacity to really fully feel if it's, really painful. So as an adult, it's part of our growth work to heal our relationship with our emotions, to make friends with them, to not think of them as so bad and painful, and also to do some processing around what are those emotions that are even there that I maybe don't even know how to feel. And when we do that, we become more regulated inside. It actually helps our nervous system. We'll feel less anxious, and we're going to be more friendly with other people's emotions as well, because we've made friends with our own emotions. Okay, so the fourth one is working on these patterns that cause drama. And I was just speaking about this. If you're the caretaker, or you're the bossy one, or maybe you're the victim who's like, oh, I can't do anything right, and I'm just so bad, and that nobody likes me place, and like everything always goes wrong for me. So when we're in one of these roles, and there's lots of flavors of those, that's a relationship pattern. It's like we call those personas. So it's a pattern we take on internally, but then it also affects how we relate to others. So I spoke a lot about that. And if we don't identify those patterns and start unwinding them, they're just going to keep playing out in so many relationships, with your boss, with your employees, with your siblings, with your parents, with your kids, and with your friends. So those have to be faced and addressed and unpackaged. So another one is working on your boundaries. Boundaries often get confused, or they aren't formed properly when we have abusive caregivers, or when there are unhealthy boundaries in our home environment, then we may not have healthy boundaries as an adult, and we may get our boundaries crossed often because we don't know how to have them, or we may be the boundary crosser. So put something in the comment if you know you've crossed boundaries, that's been you, or if you're the opposite, people cross my boundaries way too often. So then you have boundary issues, and they need to be addressed also, or else that will just keep showing up in your relationships where you're not honoring and respecting others in the right way, and then you're also kind of asking for them to cross your boundaries because you don't have any, or yours are really fuzzy wuzzy and too loose. Another one is, like I was speaking to earlier, is making friends with your needs and your desires, because as I was saying, often if it wasn't safe to have needs because your needs didn't get met, it felt threatening to have them, then one of your strategies might have been to suppress your needs and be the caretaker for others. So then that has to be addressed so that you can have a healthy dynamic with someone where you value your needs and they value your needs, and vice versa. You know how to value someone else's needs without letting them override your own. And then also what I call living in integrity, which is living in alignment with who you truly are. And sometimes you don't know who you truly are until you've done some of these other steps, until you really source, like, what do I need and want, and what feels good to me, and how to access your pleasure and your passions. But living in integrity is when you really live in a way that feels good to you, and also that feels respectful to you and others. And where you feel like you're living from your heart, you're doing your heart's work in the world, you're doing what feels nourishing and fulfilling in your life with your time. You're not resenting how you're spending your time. So that's living in integrity. And when you don't live in integrity, it affects your relationships, right? Because if you don't, you're hating how you're spending your time, it's going to come out in your intimate relationships with other people. You're going to be spewing your negativity on them because you're like frustrated with your life. So often people project their inner stuff, their inner frustrations on their partners, because they're so unhappy at work, and they're spending 40 hours a week or more doing something they don't like. And then it looks like your partner's fault because you come home and you're pissed already, or you need some space or whatever it is, and your partner's there, and you just like spew it out on them. So the more you're in alignment with yourself and you're living in a way that generates good energy for you, then you can share that more easily. I hope that makes sense. And then another piece is when you carry guilt and shame, and those are heavy, right? Those are like big unhappy feelings that can like cloud our reality. And I spoke to them in different ways earlier, but they really get in the way of just having like ease and flow between you and other people. If you're always feeling guilty about wanting something or guilty about saying no, so it's going to come up when you set boundaries. It's going to come up when you express your needs. The guilt and the shame may come up when you start allowing people to see who you truly are. So as you unfold in your authenticity, then sometimes guilt and shame arise more. So those need to be addressed so they don't, like, you don't suppress yourself again. Hope that makes sense. So, and lastly, and this is not least, but just last for now, is a healthy relationship with your sexuality. So often we've maybe been assaulted or been abused, or we've just lived in a repressive household where sexuality wasn't, discussed, and there was shame around it, or of course our puritanical culture that many of us live in. So we have a lot of shameful feelings about our bodies and about our sexual energy and our sexual expression. And so when we have that in the way, it gets in the way of our intimacy. So that's obviously not necessarily a communication issue. And that's why, communication won't necessarily fix it. So it needs to be addressed if you want to have healthy, intimate relations with others and with yourself. So that's several points that I've come to say, and I'm going to see what you are saying here. Boundary issues because I fear losing the connection. Really good insight, Kathy. Thank you for sharing that. So what I want to say is, before we wrap up here, that I offer, because I know there's so much more than communication, even though a lot of you say, I just need communication skills to fix my relationship. I know there's more. And hopefully you get why I think that now. And many of you know I'm about to offer my group program for women that's called Rock Your Relationship Immersion Program, where we actually address every one of those areas throughout the program. So it's a robust program for women, and it includes coaching with me. It includes practices where you can integrate the material and actually work with your boundaries, in the group and with other people, and work with your needs and work with your communication skills, so that you have an embodied experience of it. And it's not just intellectual learning like you could get from a book anywhere or online. It's a practical learning so that your life changes. But anyway, that group is coming up. And so if you are someone who is wanting a real change in your relationships, and not just to, as I love the metaphor, not just to rearrange the furniture on the Titanic, which is just the surface level, but if you want to get to the source and really unearth the patterns that are in the way of your healthy relating, then I invite you to meet me one-on-one in my relationship breakthrough session. And it's a totally free offer. It's an opportunity for us to sit down one-on-one on Zoom for like a half hour, 45 minutes, and look at what's going on for you, what feels like an obstacle to the goals that you want in your relationship life or your inner life. And I give you a takeaway right there in the session for what I think you need to focus on and what's going to help the most. And then if the group is interesting, we can talk about that because I do have a few spots left right now. And I'm also opening just a few spots for private coaching in my practice right now as well. So maybe one of those will be a fit for you. So if you are interested in that, let's get you on a schedule. I'm going to put my link right now in the comment. So what that's going to do is open up my calendar where you can schedule an appointment. If you don't see something that works for you, definitely let me know and we can find something that will fit your schedule. But I would suggest you click that link right now and see if you can grab a session. I've got some open over the next couple of days, and the group starts next week. So I would love to sit down with you and support you in starting on your healing path and taking, getting a real resolution to your relationship challenges. And it's totally free. So I'd be happy to meet with you and see what we can work out. So click the link and grab an appointment with me. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here. I hope this has been helpful. Please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts or any questions you have, and I will definitely get notified and come respond to you. All right. Have a good day or evening whenever you're watching, and take care.